Hey, what's up, family? This is Marseille, aka the Property Pastor, coming at you with another great real estate video. Today, we're going to be talking about, we're right in the middle of our current series, talking about how do you determine your investment vehicle. Now, everybody today wants to get involved in real estate investing. You know, we look at statistics. You know, tons and tons of millionaires are made, are developed and made through real estate investing, and everybody wants to get into it. But one of the things that people really struggle with is, where do I start? Do I flip houses? Do I buy a bunch of rentals, right? How do I get the money? You know, so we're talking in this current series all about, we're just kind of reviewing some of the different real estate investment vehicles. We've talked so far about buying holds. We've talked about fix and flips. We've talked about BRRRR deals. But in today's video, we are going to be digging into wholesaling real estate. You know, maybe you've heard that term before. Maybe it's totally new to you. And we're going to talk a little bit about wholesaling today. We're going to talk about some of the pros and cons. We're going to break it down so you really understand what it is. And we're really going to try to help you figure out whether or not that is for you. So I work with wholesalers in my business. My very first deal was through a wholesaler. It is still my number one performer to this day. I love that house. Shout out to my man, Sam. If you're out there listening, appreciate you, brother. You know, I'm just so grateful to have real estate wholesalers that I work with who bring me deals, right? So I want to break down wholesaling, you know, in this video. But before we get started, hey, do me a favor. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow this channel, because we are bringing great content to you every single day, or every single week rather, so that you can be built up, so that you can get what you need to help you along your real estate journey. You know, me as the property pastor, you know, real estate is my side hustle. I work a W-2 job. I go to work a 9 to 5, so to speak. I'm also a pastor as well. But my most important thing is building a legacy for my kids. So I want to help you do that. I want to help you to build a legacy for you and your family. I want to help you to build your faith, because I believe that you can do anything. Scripture says that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, right? So I want to give you that tidbit of encouragement. But hey, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about wholesaling real estate, right? So first of all, what is it, right? What is wholesaling real estate? So to kind of bring that point home, you know, I have a quick little graphic that I want to show you guys. Basically, what happens is you have a seller, right? That seller has a property. They're motivated, you know, and a motivated seller might be somebody who has had a death in their family. You know, it could be a son or daughter or whatever, and their parents passed away. Could be a wife, you know, husband passed away, whatever that might be. Could be somebody going through divorce. Could be somebody who just has a house that they're just tired of paying the taxes on. They're tired of carrying it, right? You know, whatever that is. They find themselves in a position where they are very motivated to get rid of the house. You know, they may need the cash, right? So what happens is a wholesaler will reach out to them, right? That wholesaler will reach out to them and lock that property up. Let's say, for example, they lock that property up for $250,000. Now, after that, the wholesaler is going to go and find a buyer for this house. So the wholesaler is the middleman. I call him a real estate matchmaker. You know, if you're dealing with a real estate agent, you know, kind of similar. But in this instance, the wholesaler is replacing the real estate agent. So typically in wholesale deals, there is no real estate agent involved. You just have a wholesaler. So the wholesaler comes in, they bring the deal, right? They lock it up, they get it under what they call contract. And they sign a contract that's for $250,000. Then they will go and in turn find a buyer who is often an investor, right? Might be a house flipper. It might be somebody who's doing a BRRRR deal. Might be a buy and hold investor. And then they will have they'll mark the price up to be $260,000. So at this point, the wholesaler is going to have a net profit of $10,000, right? So the wholesaler is kind of the middleman. Like I said, they're kind of the real estate matchmaker. And then they go forward and they find a back-end buyer, and then their proceeds are the $10,000, right? So wholesalers are very important in the real estate game. You know, a lot of flippers, you know, they use wholesalers a ton. I use them in my business. You know, I know several wholesalers, and it's a great way to get started. So you might be saying, well, hey, Marseille, this sounds great, man. Sign me up. You know, let's look at what it takes, though. What does it take? Because not everybody is cut out to be a wholesaler. I know I'm not necessarily cut out to be a wholesaler. It's not what I do. It's not my bread and butter. But I want to look at some of the key skills that you need if you're going to be a successful real estate wholesaler. First of all, you got to deal with people. Right, you got to have people skills. You got to have negotiation skills. So a wholesaler is going to go and they're going to be marketing, right? You got to have marketing skills. They're going to be marketing out, sending out letters, cold calling, sending out text blasts, doing Facebook ads, all this kind of stuff to find what we call leads, right? So through those leads, they're going to be contacting. They're constantly on the phone. They're constantly reaching out to people. They're constantly, utilizing all of these tools so that they can negotiate. But you got to have people skills. You have to be able to work the phone. So if you get really nervous, on the phone, you're like, hey, I hate talking to people, wholesale, it might not be your game, right? But at the end of the day, you've got to have people skills. You've got to have negotiation skills. You got to be able to build rapport with a seller, right? You got to be able to, kind of build rapport, talk to them, find a way where they are willing to sell that house. Because remember, the key part about this thing is your markup. So if you're a wholesaler and retail price is $260, and you go in and you lock it up for $260, and then you try to mark it up for $280, that investor knows they've got to get a certain price in order to make money, right? So you've got to be able to get your prices down to be able to purchase. And really the wonderful thing about being a wholesaler is the lower you can get set up with your purchase price, and you can create that spread, the more money you make as a wholesaler. So some wholesalers do phenomenal, man. They kill it, right? But you got to have people skills. You got to have negotiation skills. The other thing, though, is you got to have the ability to value real estate. And what that means is, pulling comps, understanding the comparable sales, understanding what we call ARV, or after repair value, and basically being able to go in and say, hey, look, to an investor, right, on the back end, that investor wants to know what's my ARV. They want to have a good idea of construction costs. They want to make sure that the number that you are projecting to them actually makes sense, right? Because a person who, and if you go back to previous videos, you understand that to flip houses or to do BRRRR deals, you need to be at 65 to 70%, no more than 75% of ARV, and that's all in purchase price, rehab money, and all that kind of stuff. So as a wholesaler, it is important that you're able to walk a job, right? Either through a contractor or once you get enough experience to be able to get out there and say, hey, investor, right? You're going to have $25,000 worth of construction costs, and you can actually sell for this 260 or whatever that number actually looks like. Because if you don't, right, you're not a lot of people you're not going to get a lot of repeat business. So you got to have the ability to value real estate. I would definitely say that, as I look at wholesaling, it is a great entry point to real estate. But one of the things about it is that it generates great income. So you got to be able to have the skill to constantly keep this ball moving, right? So one of the skills is to be able to constantly generate income, constantly generate leads, because what happens is if you don't keep your pipeline full, every deal is transactional, right? So when you stop, if you're doing wholesaling full time, there's a whole process to this. There's a process of finding leads. There's a process of doing the estimating. There's a process of lining up back end buyers. It's a constant cycle. So you may be working through problems with probate. You may be having issues trying to close that property on the title search issues, all of that kind of stuff. So a wholesaler touches a lot of pieces, but it's a lot of moving parts. I call it a lot of spinning plates that have to do with wholesaling. But it's an income. You got to be able to have the ability to continue to keep the pipeline full, to keep deals flowing. Let's look at this. There are some pros of wholesaling, right? So again, wholesaling is an income generator. So when you're doing wholesaling real estate, you can make a lot of money. And Max Maxwell, these guys are killing it. Brent Daniels, these guys they're killing it. I know a lot of wholesalers, they do a phenomenal job. They make a ton of money. But there are definitely some pros to this thing. One of them that I really want to key in, and this is where a lot of people get started at with wholesaling, is what makes it so attractive. It doesn't cost you a lot of money to get started, right? It doesn't cost you a lot of money to get, typically if you're going to buy a rental, you're going to buy a property, you got to put 20% down. So if your market, is a $200,000 median price point, that's 40 grand. Everybody doesn't have 40 grand just sitting around. I know I just didn't have 40 grand sitting around when I started. And a lot of folks get started in wholesaling because it's a low barrier to entry. And I think, that's one of the good parts about it. So if you don't have a ton of money, you want to get started and you have a lot of the key skill sets, then wholesaling might be for you. Other piece of it is that there are few regulations in most states. You don't have to have a license to wholesale. You don't have to go to become a licensed real estate agent to be a wholesaler. There's very little regulation when it comes to that because you're transactional. You're kind of that middleman, in what I would consider an off-market deal. Right, so there's few regulations in most states. Other thing that's nice about wholesaling is that once you get the hang of it, you get good at it. It is very scalable. It can be scaled over time, right? You can hire what we call virtual assistants. So the virtual assistant, some wholesalers that I know, what they do is they have what we call VAs, and that virtual assistant is doing cold calling. They're following up on leads for them. They're basically getting 50 to 60% of the work done on their behalf, and then the wholesaler actually just comes in and they kind of do the final negotiation, right? So wholesaling is very much a numbers game, and but it's very scalable, right? So I know folks that have built very nice businesses. They have lead managers, they have folks who go out and see properties, they got folks that are on the marketing side, so it's a very scalable business. So I think when you look at, there's a lot of pros to wholesaling as a whole. And again, it can generate income very quick. So when you get systems down, you get really good at this thing, you can have, multiple deals going on at the same time. It's not difficult for a person that's wholesaling real estate to be generating, $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month. It happens every day. People do very well with wholesaling. And the nice part about technology, you can actually wholesale in other parts of the country. I know a wholesaler now who's literally like, hey, I'm doing virtual wholesaling, where I've got my team set up, they're my boots on the ground, and I can do this from anywhere. So definitely a lot of pros there. The other thing about it is that as you start to generate income, it can be seed money for other purchases. It can become seed money for you to buy rentals. It can become seed money if you want to do flips. It can become seed money if you want to do BRRRRs, right? So the nice part about wholesaling is that it is what I consider an entry point to deeper levels of investing. So if you take that money, right, and you use it to start purchasing rentals as you begin to generate more, now you're generating wealth. So I think wholesaling is a great way to get started in real estate, right? If I was, 20 years old, 25 years old with very little money, I'd be all over wholesaling. But just like with anything, there are some cons to it, right? You guys, it sounds fabulous. You're like, Marcy, I'm starting tomorrow. Well, let me hip you to some of the cons of it, because there are definitely some cons to wholesaling real estate. Very first thing is that you're only as good as your reputation. And trust me, guys, I get contacted by a lot of wholesalers, and some of them don't know what they're doing. All right, I've been sent leads where they don't know the property, they don't know the comps, they don't know the construction costs. They're telling me it's $10,000 of work, and I've wasted my time going to look at properties and come to find out it's $50,000 of work. So I think as a wholesaler, your reputation is key. And sometimes people who flip houses, they're like, yeah, wholesalers are everywhere. Because it is a low barrier to entry, a lot of people are doing it, and folks get into it and, take a course or whatever. They watch a few YouTube videos and they're ready to roll and they think they're experts. But you're only as good as your reputation. So, when you're starting to deal with investors who know what they're doing and you don't, they're not going to pick the phone up. They're not going to throw money towards you. So fortunately, I've got a few that are really good and know their stuff, and they've helped me to grow my business. But you're only as good as your reputation, right? So I think the other piece of it is that the field can be very crowded. My market is really competitive. Right now we're in a seller's market, and even on the off market space where wholesalers operate, it can get real crowded. Some of them are, they're fighting for deals. Some folks, they're doing text message blasts to other investors, text message blasts to landlords and to property owners and probates and divorce attorneys. So it can get real crowded real fast. So there are definitely some cons depending on your market. The other piece of it is that it can be very time consuming. So if you don't have systems built up, it can be extremely time consuming. There's nothing for, some of the wholesalers that I know, they're working, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, 6-7 days a week. It's a pure grind for them because they know it's a numbers game. Typically when you start talking about sending out mailers, you start talking about lead generation and all that kind of stuff, your response rates are like 1% to 3%. So what that means is if you want to talk to 3 people, hey, you got to send out 100 to 300 mailers, or you got to send out 100 to 300 texts or postcards or whatever that is, cold calls, right? All of this stuff, it could be very time consuming. It could be extremely time consuming if you don't have systems. So what I know a lot of folks nowadays who've actually shifted over to they're using technology to their advantage. They're doing Facebook ads. They're doing text message blasts and all these kind of things. But when you're just getting started and you don't have money for that kind of stuff, it could be very, very time consuming. Working those phones, sending out letters, text message blasts, all of that stuff, it could be very, very time consuming. So if you're doing this with an hour a week, right, the amount that you put in is going to dictate how much you get out of it, right? So it could be tricky. So I think there, even while it's a great way to get started, it can be difficult as well, right? Other piece of it is that it's people intensive. You're dealing with lots of people. You're dealing with sellers, trying to deal with sellers who are selling homes, depending on how you're finding leads, right? You may be going out to the courthouse, looking up stuff on public record. You may be, calling divorce attorneys. You may be dealing with probate. You may be dealing with tax liens. All of these kind of stuff, you're constantly touching people. When it comes down to your investors you're trying to sell to, right? That could be, troublesome too, because this investor likes things this way. This buyer's list likes things that way. You're constantly dealing with people. Title issues, right? You're down to the title company. Closings are one of the most stressful events for wholesalers, because they're constantly, the deal doesn't close until you sign that paper, right? So the deal is not a win until you get all the title search completed, you get all the legal issues worked out. I've seen times where, a property is divided up between, 6 heirs, 8 heirs, or whatever like that, and they got to contact each and every one of them, and you're thinking it's going to close, and you're getting started, right? Where you're ready, you're banking on this 10 grand, this 15 grand, and title, they come back and tells you, no, we can't close today. We can't close until next week. And now you're like, oh man, so it could be very stressful, right? It could be very people intensive, very time intensive, and also stressful at the same time. But as you look at it, right, wholesaling, like I mentioned, it's a great way to get started, man. And I would definitely recommend it. If you got the energy, you got the skills, you've got the, just the push and the drive, you can succeed at it. Like I said, I know several wholesalers who've done very well. They've been integral to my business, but again, you just got to go in with your eyes wide open. Don't go in thinking that, this is going to be the easiest thing. One thing I found out here is that it's stuff ain't easy. It takes work. It's a grind. You got to push. You got to keep learning. You got to keep growing. So with that being said, I want to shoot you guys a couple of resources that I think are beneficial to you. So if you're looking at wholesale and real estate and you think that it's for you, right? I'd highly recommend you invest in your education. And, there's a lot of resources out there, but I want to kind of just share a few with you. Some of the big names to me that are out there I think are good. I usually tell people about are Maxwell. Max is, I've never met Max. I hope to meet him someday, but he's a giant in wholesaling. Really good at what he does. He's on YouTube. He's on all social media. You can find him pretty easy. Just a quick Google search for Maxwell wholesale, right? He's got some really good stuff. Another guy that's huge in it is Brent Daniels, and I believe his group is called TTP or TPP rather. They're pretty big in the wholesale game and the wholesale space, and you can find them. They got podcasts, they got videos, right? They're all over the place. Another really good group that I like, these guys are down south. They're called the Wholesale Hackers. Adam Johnson and Brent Moreno are down there. I think they're in Mississippi, but they got a really good group. Shout out to those guys. Shout out to my man Eric Bryant, who's actually been on the Property Pastor show before. But Eric's a good friend of mine, local to my market, and he's connected with those guys down with the Wholesale Hackers. But they do a really good job of wholesaling. They've got call-ins, they've got mentorships, they've got all of these things that help you along the way. That you can really benefit from. They're there to answer questions. They're there to help you along the way. I know folks that have actually utilized their mentorship and have really grown their business. A good podcast that's out there is the Real Estate Disruptors. Steve Trang and his group down there, they've got some really good podcast material that they put out, innovative stuff, right? So you can learn the ins and outs of wholesale and real estate. You can be mentored. You can get your questions answered. And then there's a million Facebook groups, right? Local Facebook groups, regional, national, everything you want, right? So check Facebook, just start joining groups, start asking questions. One thing that's nice about technology, man, is you got so many resources now. And then obviously bigger podcasts. I always, recommend Bigger Pockets because Bigger Pockets gives you a very good foundation if you're willing to put in the work to watch videos, read, and all that kind of stuff. And then just general YouTube, man. I mean, just get on YouTube and Google, right? Wholesaling real estate. Start there, you know. And the thing is, it's not easy. It's not an overnight thing. But the more you learn, right, you're going to get there. So I tell people all the time, do not overestimate what you can do in a year, but don't underestimate what you can do in 5. Right. And what that means is a lot of people, look, we're coming up to the end of the year and a lot of folks are going to get into January 1 and they're going to be like, this is my year. I'm going to succeed. I'm going to blow up. This is going to be it. Right. And then by March, they're falling off the wagon. Take incremental focused effort daily. Right. What does that mean? Take 30 minutes a day. Read. Take 30 minutes a day. Watch videos. Take 30 minutes a day. Start calling leads, right? Before you know it, you're there. Before you know it, you've grown. Look, I've been doing real estate investing for 3 years. I bought my first property back in 2017. And every single day I read something. Every single day I'm investing in my education. Every single day. It never stops, right? But understand something. When you do those things is that you get the compound interest, the compound benefit of growing your knowledge base, growing your skill set. And you got to recognize your competition is not doing that, right? So this thing is a marathon, man. It is not a sprint. But look, you can do it. And I believe in you, you know, and I know you're going to get there if you make the commitments and put in the time. So I wanted to talk wholesaling with you guys. I hope this has been beneficial to you. And if you got questions, man, drop them down in the comment section. I'll get back to you. I try to answer all of my questions on this channel. Again, make sure you like and subscribe. Hope you loved the video. Love you guys. Praying for you. Be safe out here. And cannot wait to talk to you again. This has been Marseille, the Property Pastor, signing off. Love you guys. Take care and God bless.